What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So check this out. Apple shows up to their event with like the MacBook Air and a couple other things, but they show up with an iPad Pro that's apparently as powerful as an Xbox One S, and they attempted to prove that by showing NBA 2K running pretty much the same. We're going to talk a bit about that later on in Newswave. And then we also have to go over Nintendo apparently looking to do DLC for big games that are already out now. So that could bring some new content to some games we've been playing for quite a while right now. First though, guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you do the like button. It does help out. You've been liking the videos a lot recently. Has been helping out. We are pushing towards that 150,000 subscriber mark, and we're getting very close. So if you're new, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button down below if you like gaming news and tech breakdowns and stuff. It's a lot of fun. And let's get into some of the quick news to get started. So Red Dead Redemption 2 is out. I've been playing it. I like it. It's pretty good, minus a few flaws here and there, and maybe being too realistic at times. But the HDR has been actually a very large point of contention here. See, people are looking at it and they're saying, this doesn't look right. HDR looks weird. And they've actually been turning HDR off, which is supposed to be a big advantage of the consoles, even at times over PC, is that you have HDR in some of these games. It looks very, very nice on your, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 TV. So Eurogamer actually put out an article that discusses this and talks a bit about how it seems to be an upscaled dynamic range image. So it's not even like actual HDR. There was even a really good video that was done over on HD TV Test where they do a lot of reviews on TVs and everything, and they really explain it in depth what they're talking about. But bottom line, it doesn't look like they're using HDR as you should. Seems like they're turning the colors up on both ends, so the blacks appear gray when they shouldn't, especially on an OLED. HD TV Test did a very good job explaining it. I would go check that video out. It's down in the sources below. But strange stuff here with Red Dead Redemption 2. I don't really get what happened here. Usually, from what we've seen with other games, HDR doesn't have like a performance impact that we've noticed, so I don't really know what's going on here, but maybe we'll get some answers, maybe a patch to fix it. Oh, and if you're a fan of Undertale, it looks like there might be an Undertale 2 coming, some new content of some kind. See, the Undertale Twitter handle all day yesterday was acting very weird, and by the time you're watching this, they may have already announced it, as they put out this tweet here, simply saying return here in 24 hours. And that was yesterday morning, which means actually by the time you're watching Newswave, you hear when it first goes up, you might be able to go over and see what exactly they were talking about. There's a lot of speculation that it could be maybe some kind of story DLC that's added in, a new part to the game, or just full-on Undertale 2. It could also just be another project not titled Undertale, although it's a little odd that the Undertale Twitter handle would be the one posting this, saying return here for something that's not Undertale, right? So, I guess Undertale fans should get excited because we might have some more Undertale to be playing soon. Also, we had the Xbox Games with Gold games revealed. It's coming out, obviously, this month, coming up November. And it actually looks pretty good. Of course, if you have Xbox Live Gold right now, you'll have access to these games in November as long as your account is current through November. Here's a slide that was actually shared by Major Nelson over on Twitter, and you could see Battlefield 1. Yeah, November 1st to the 30th. It's just going to be free, which is pretty cool because that technically could get you, I guess, get you started with Battlefield as people are waiting for Battlefield 5 to come out. Race the Sun. Assassin's Creed 1, which I don't know how well that one aged, to be honest, looking at like something like Assassin's Creed 2 or even the newest one, Odyssey, but hey, it's free. And then Dante's Inferno, which is actually a game I liked. It's similar, obviously, to something like God of War, the old God of War, not the newer ones, but I still really liked it. I thought it was interesting. It's not very long. It's like 7 or 8 hours. Yeah, it technically was like a lesser version of God of War, but it was still fun, and it's worth checking out, I think, if you like kind of those action-style beat-em-up, very fast-paced games. But Battlefield 1, I mean, that's a pretty good get for games with gold, even if it's a bit older. It's still cool for people who haven't played it. It's definitely worth downloading. All right, guys, some of the quick news. Let's jump into some of the bigger stuff. And we're going to start right away with this Nintendo DLC situation. So there are some games out on the Switch right now that people would like to see more content for, or just DLC in general, meaningful DLC, not like little side games or add-ons or like Balloon World or whatnot, actual DLC. And it sounds like Nintendo might be planning that out now, as questions were asked, of course, from investors, and Nintendo answers and puts out different statements depending on what's asked. So they kind of think about their statements a bit. But this was actually translated and put out saying, we need continuous growth. We must keep releasing new software. That includes DLCs and other contents for big titles that are already out. and more focus on online play. Lastly, more genres and diverse games to draw in people who don't currently play on Switch. That's done here by Yuji Nakamura, who actually went through, followed the call and everything that was going on for investors, where they do ask questions and Nintendo generally answers. And this is interesting because there is one game that I know pretty much everyone out there, for the most part, wants DLC for that's big, and that's Mario Odyssey. Super Mario Odyssey is an awesome game. I really like it, and yeah, I would like to see something added in, whether it's just new worlds, whether they take some inspiration from older games and kind of work them in there. A lot of people are saying Mario Sunshine. That'd be cool, but they could even get crazy and pull something from like Mario Galaxy even. I mean, there's a lot of stuff they could do here. I think people would buy in. Also, some people talk a bit about like, hey, what about Zelda? Can we do more Zelda content? I don't know. I don't know if people would be okay with that because they already did like a pass and everything you could buy for the downloadable content, and they seem to say that they were done with it now and they're moving on and building the next Zelda game, whether that's using the same engine or the same world building that they did, or they want to go in a completely different direction from the open world. But there's still a lot of games out there that they could add downloadable content to. It's just, in my mind, Super Mario Odyssey is a game that I feel like I got my money's worth, and I wouldn't mind buying just more to it, you know, just more worlds. Let me know what you guys think about the possibility of Mario Odyssey, or what's a game that you would like to see get downloadable content that you feel would make a lot of sense for that game. Nintendo would make money, it would give us more of that experience. What do you think? Because I saw a lot of people weren't happy with Zelda at first when the DLC was announced, but then people seemed to come around after they saw what the entire picture of the DLC was, and now people seem to be on board with the idea of Nintendo doing DLC, as long as it's done correctly. That's the big thing, right? So let me know what you guys think about that down below. Next up, let's talk about the PlayStation 4 and Sony. See, when Nintendo generally releases their financial reports, Sony is pretty much right on cue to do the same thing because their schedules pretty much match up for their fiscal years and everything. Well, Sony put theirs out, and the one big thing, they're making money and everything, which is great. They have a ton, actually a pretty large user base for PlayStation Plus. Over 30 million have signed up and everything. But the big question here is, when is the PlayStation 4 going to cross that coveted 100 million mark? Well, it looks like it's going to happen next year, and their latest report seems to pretty much put that concrete at this point. So they put out a ton of information. Here's a slide here just showing the number of PS4s that they have been shipping, and in quarter two, 3.9 million systems. That, of course, really helped when Spider-Man came out, right? Spider-Man pushed a lot of units, big time. I'm sure God of War continued to sell, as we saw it on the charts going forward through July, August, September. 3.9 million units is pretty good for a system that is now over 86 million units. That's usually don't sell 4 million units when you're over 80 million, but the PlayStation 4 is doing that, yeah. So we heard that the Switch obviously sold over 3 million units. The PS4 is selling 3.9 million, and that just happens when you have these big games like Spider-Man. They have a lot of third-party support. Sony knows how to sell a system. They know how to build one, they know how to get third parties in, and they know how to sell this a lot. The PS3 was their one system that didn't do well, but if you look back, every other system's done well, and it looks like the PS4 is going to be joining all of those other systems over 100 million units at this point. The original PlayStation, the PS2, and now the PS4. And in fact, at this point, it looks like the PS4 has actually already passed the PS3 in terms of sales. It should also pass the Wii at this point, the original regular Wii that had over 100 units, so 100 million units. So it's just business as usual for Sony. They're just selling systems. They learned, I guess, from the PS3, that big misstep there. And it'll be curious to see what they do with the PS5 when that comes out and see if they can make that another 100 million unit seller, or will maybe Microsoft or Nintendo start to pull away from that market share? It's hard to say. It was pretty clear right from the start that Sony had this generation one. It was so fast. It was like within the first year, people were like, yeah, Sony's probably going to take this generation. But we're restarting soon. I'm trying to figure out if the PlayStation 4 is going to get to 100 million before we restart, as they've now also raised their estimates for this fiscal year to 17.5 million units sold from 17 million units. So we talked about Nintendo having to do 20 million and Sony selling PS4s like crazy, but I think they realized that it is going to be slowing down as everyone has a PS4, right? They're coming up on 90 million. That's a lot of people to have PlayStation 4s at this point, especially since gaming is strong, but there are a lot of options out there. Cell phones play Fortnite now. It's like everything's everything's pulling away from the traditional console gaming and traditional handhelds, but Sony's still selling well, Nintendo's selling well, and I think Microsoft is going to be ready for a bit of a reboot going into the next generation. Speaking of systems that are kind of pulling away from the traditional gaming market, let's talk a bit about this iPad Pro that Apple announced. Now, right off the bat, it's a very expensive tablet. It's not really technically in the same league as the Switch in terms of its pricing and availability that way. This, of course, is targeting the Apple audience that understands that these things are expensive. It's $800 to get started. That's the start, okay? $800, but it does have cutting-edge technology that could give us a bit of a window as to where something like mobile chipsets in the Switch or even cell phones could be heading. Because according to Apple, this iPad Pro is as powerful as an Xbox One S. And in order to demonstrate that, they had 2K talk about NBA, how they have NBA 2K series, of course, on the Xbox, PS4, and even the Switch. It's going to run just the same as it does on the Xbox One S. 60 frames per second on their really high-resolution screen and everything. This looks like Apple is making a big push with their chipset that they have in this thing, the A12X. In fact, according to Apple, the A12X is going to have a 90% increase over just the A12 that they actually just introduced fairly recently now. It's going to have over twice the GPU performance. So yeah, this thing is rolling along pretty strong. We're going to see benchmarks, all kinds of stuff. They just announced this thing yesterday, so we need actual people, reviewers, to get this in their hands and really test it, because of course, companies will tell you these kind of things a lot. We just saw Intel do some of the weirdest benchmarks ever to try to sell you on something. NVIDIA does the same thing at times, where they put graphs out that have bars that are really large, and you find out that the values aren't that much larger. It's just they tried to make the graph look that way. So they're talking like this is going to be massive. This is an Xbox One S in the palm of your hands, but let's actually see what happens here when it goes out to reviewers who are independent from Apple, and let them kind of take it around the track a bit and see how this iPad Pro actually does. Then our last bit of news, let's finish off with Red Dead Redemption 2, because we got some sales numbers and it did really, really well. So let me put this in perspective for you. We just talked about Call of Duty Black Ops 4 selling over $500 million in revenue in its first, 3 days? Red Dead Redemption 2 actually did better than that by quite a bit, actually. Now, it didn't really reach GTA 5's ridiculous numbers of $1 billion or something crazy in revenue, but it did very, very well, especially for the Red Dead Redemption line. So check this out. Business Wire actually put out a full article going over it. Red Dead Redemption 2 grossed $725 million in worldwide retail sell-through. That's in their first 3 days, guys. That's insane. That is so much money to make. Now, GTA 5 grossed over $1 billion in that same time period, the same 3 days, but that is insane to see that much money come in. That's crazy. I mean, we just talked about Black Ops 4 doing $500 million. That felt like a ton. $725 million in its 3 days. This is probably going to end up topping the MPDs then, even though it released on the 26th. The fact that MPDs track, of course, revenue dollar sales, if not, it's going to be close, because I'm curious how much Black Ops 4 sold throughout the month. This is just a massive jump right here from Red Dead Redemption 2. But let me know what you guys think, and if you bought it, and if that makes sense, because everyone around you is buying it. Everyone on my Xbox list is playing Red Dead Redemption 2. Everyone on the PlayStation list I have is playing Red Dead Redemption 2, so I guess everybody is buying it. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, make sure you hit the like button. It does help out. If not, hit the dislike, and leave comments down below about everything we talked about, whether it's an iPad Pro that apparently is an Xbox One S in the palm of your hands that probably will have some sort of thermal throttling, but we'll see how all that goes. Again, when reviewers get it in their hands and actually try it out, I'll be very curious to see, because it could be interesting to see where mobile technology goes, with Apple really going crazy in their R&D department with this A12X chip. Also, what about Nintendo and their DLC plans, and then Sony and their PlayStation 4 cruising towards that 100 million mark? Looks like it might be next week or next year that they're going to get there, guys. Let me know what you think down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.